Reality is like a film set. There are directors,
Action!
producers,
Are we on schedule?
and even actors.
Can somebody get me a coffee?
The trick is realizing that you are playing all of these roles. You are the executive producer of your reality. My name is Daniel,
My name is Lauren.
and we're here to break the fourth wall to discover what's behind the scenes. And what you hear just might have you saying, "That's so meta."
Welcome to That's So Meta, where we discuss the mystical, magical, and metaphysical. My name's Lauren Murray,
And I am Daniel James.
and this episode is about extraterrestrial contact.
E.T. Contact.
It's really exciting. That's what we all want, right? So first, we would like to thank our sponsor and also plug a couple things. So if you'll allow us to indulge, we'd like to thank Steeltown Entertainment Project for allowing us to use their space once again. This is unfortunately going to be the last time that we're going to use their space. We have some space open in our office that would work. So we kind of have to say goodbye to this space, unfortunately. But they have been so absolutely wonderful for us, and they're really big advocates for the local filmmaking community. And they've been really wonderful. So Would you like to plug your...
Well, yeah, like you said, thank you very much, Steeltown. This space has been awesome, and I would highly encourage anybody who's looking for space, maybe, a helping hand. They have a lot of people involved in the Steeltown Entertainment Project. All of the today's guest episodes until now have been filmed here as well on their green screen.
Yeah.
They're very helpful and accommodating, great people, so thank you, Steeltown.
Thank you. Yeah.
I would like to also, let's just catch everybody up a little bit on, where we're at on things. We are maximizing the show Today's Guest, which I channel a new entity or being every episode, at a total of, I think, 6 episodes. And so by the time you hear this, there will be one more episode.
Right.
For Today's Guest, until if and when there is a demand for more episodes. That's one thing that we are going to have to filter out a little bit just based on how our production schedule has been over the summer and the fall. It's been good. Business is very good, and we as the Moment Imaging have been very busy. We just don't have time to do all of the projects that we had set out to do right now. But we are still working on Reality Mechanics. Season 1 is 4 episodes, and it is very slow going based on how much work that we've been doing this summer. But that series is also still in production. And we've been producing some other film projects, some commissioned film projects for other teams and studios as well. And we've just been very busy.
Yeah, traveling quite a bit.
Traveling a lot. We went to Mount Shasta. And we were the official videographers of the Mount Shasta Spirit Ambassador Retreat, which was quite the experience.
Yeah.
Which I think we'll touch on a little bit today, later in the episode. And then we're going to Florida for the same company and the same team to shoot for them again. And then we're going to Sedona for the same team to shoot for them again. So we do actually travel for work as videographers. And, we stay busy.
Yeah,
Things are going well.
Absolutely. I'm very, very grateful for the volume of work that we have, and excited for all the opportunities that it's bringing us as far as like traveling and
going to
meeting
Buffalo a couple
and,
times a week, shooting films.
Yeah, networking and all that. So I'm very, very grateful for it. Unfortunately, though, we do have to kind of put aside some of our own personal projects in order to maintain such a high volume.
Yeah, the passion projects take a back seat, whenever, life happens and work happens. And
yeah, but this show is very, low maintenance, and we enjoy doing it. It's one of the easier things that we have going on.
Yeah, we're going to keep up to that.
So this
meta.
one is, we're definitely going to keep up with it.
We've even talked about pumping this up to 2 episodes a month instead of just the 1. So if there's any interest in that, we could do bi-weekly episodes because we will be shooting these at our house.
Yeah, especially like you said, if we're shooting them at our house, we'll have more access to the location rather than having to come out to Pittsburgh to shoot. So yeah,
That's
what's
so
what
meta.
has been going on.
We've been busy, very busy.
Very busy.
Yeah, I think we mentioned this in episode 1, but we are a full service video production team. You know, that's everything from like films to weddings to, you
Event
know,
coverage, to
music
videos, yeah,
all that stuff. So
a little bit of everything.
yeah, busy.
If you
Busy
can film
summer.
it, we will be there.
We have been there at some point.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, would you like to start us off on our topic for the day?
So let's talk about one of my favorite things in the world, extraterrestrial contact. Little sneak peek, episode 4 of Reality Mechanics will be about this concept and my passion about it. Also, check the link in the description below. I have a symposium that I did in the fall of 2018 for Zion Zeta, and I've decided to release the symposium for free to watch. And it talks a little bit more comprehensively about ETs and the phenomenon of them and some other concepts, but we're not going to go into this one fact that aliens are real, extraterrestrials exist.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way. I guess it's something we have to address because not everybody is like on board with that, but they exist. That's the baseline.
They exist. They are amongst us. They are out there. They are in here. They're everywhere right now.
Always.
Okay, we're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
This is about the disclosure and the contact of them. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about how I am familiar with the way contact has happened in our history, quote unquote history, how it's happening now, and then in what ways, we think that it could happen down the line when it's more physical and open. We are aliens ourselves, okay? We have the genetics and the DNA of 22 extraterrestrial beings, species. That's what make up human. Human isn't just a thing that is just not just one race that exists solely as its own being. We are an amalgamation, a compilation of DNA and genetics from other races of intelligent life. 22 of them. Okay? We were created by extraterrestrials. Okay? Sorry. This is the way it is. The reason why I'm telling you that is to disarm the fact that not only are they out there, but we are them. We are made of their same genetic makeup.
We're all just stardust.
We're all just stardust. There are several races that look exactly like we do, or very similar with slightly different physical features. Okay? This is because we share DNA and genetics with them. This episode of That's So Meta is to talk about the contact with them.
Right.
Now, I also don't want to go exactly into why we don't have an open disclosure of them. Obviously, if you do any research or studying in your own time or have a general interest in the concept that do aliens exist, you know that we have evidence of their presence on this planet. It's everywhere. Okay? We know that Germany and Russia were in open contact with intelligent extraterrestrial beings all the way back from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. Okay? Different species of them. Some of them Pleiadian, some of them reptilian, some of them are what are called as, the Nordics or the tall whites. Many different hundreds of different subspecies of what we call the gray. The Zetas, there are gray aliens that have that look. There are a lot of different species and races and subspecies and subraces of intelligent extraterrestrial life. Now, if you are an extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional enthusiast like I am, most of my life and my career is some way based on, contact in some way, shape, or form. I am an extraterrestrial channeler. Okay, if you've poked around my YouTube at all, or if you've seen my movies, it all has something to do with this concept, which is why we're very passionate to talk about it. We have had open contact directly, our leadership and our military has had contact with the Tyket and Pleiadians multiple times throughout our quote-unquote history, and the reptilians, more specifically talking about the Draconian Empire and the Kingu and some other subspecies of reptilian. This is just to sort of disclose a little bit about those beings that Earth human civilizations have had open relationships with in terms of our politics and our military. But it goes all the way back to our creation and their involvement in our inception as a species. It is kept from us and hidden from us, withheld from us, the disclosure and the concept and the contact of ET races for very relevant reasons. Okay? There are negative and agenda-based reasons why ETs are slandered and tarnished and blemished in our entertainment industry through movies. Aliens are always coming to attack us and blow us up and kill us and do
Very
terrible
negative
things to us.
connotations.
Very negative overtones through our entertainment. That's to instill fear. That the beings, the star family, the star nations, the galactic federations could be threatening or dangerous to us. Okay? That agenda and that manipulation that has been programmed into our societies, our culture, is because they're not actually the threat. Our star family is what I call them, extraterrestrial star family. The threat isn't coming from the sky. It's already here. And so that propaganda, that agenda of negative ETs, that fear-based sort of entertainment is to keep us away from wanting aliens to reveal themselves to us and then come in peace.
Right.
Okay? And they know that. They watch, they study. There are extraterrestrials, very intelligent like us, that literally use our internet now and our social media. Twitter is a big one. YouTube. They're monitoring all of this and watching our society develop and grow and studying our consciousness and seeing where we're at as a race and a planet. And many of the positive, benevolent, loving extraterrestrial races, they go by a rule, which is called the Prime Directive. And this is a concept that you can see in entertainment, but that concept came from the real Prime Directive.
Yeah, like Star Trek is the biggest one. They have to follow the Prime Directive,
Which basically means you cannot infringe on the free will or intervene in a society or a race that is less spiritually or technologically developed than your own. It's a rule that the star nations go by so that you're not impeding or infringing on the free will or the development, the spiritual development of that race.
I would say, I think a really good reference for that, if you ever want to look into it, is I think it's Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah.
I think the opener for that one is that they go to a primitive planet and they have to do a task. And in escaping the planet, they have to reveal their craft. They have to reveal the ship that they're using. And because it is such a jarring concept to the life forms on that planet, they think that that's God and they start worshiping it the second that they leave the planet.
Which is another reason why the Prime Directive is in place.
Exactly. So that completely derails the path of that planet of life forms.
Yep. The positive, loving, benevolent species don't want to be worshipped.
Yeah.
They don't want to be looked up to as deities or angels. They have in the past. Earth in the past and other races of civilizations who have been welcomed and greeted by extraterrestrials
With the
are
best
worshipped.
of intentions, they're worshipped.
And they don't want that. The real, benevolent, loving ones don't want that. So getting back to the ways that contact has happened, well, the Taigetan Pleiadians have made multiple attempts for peace treaties and agreements and alliances with the leadership of the countries and continents of Earth. And it's more often than not always turned down or disregarded. And then, so it seems like our human leadership has not been very well receptive to positive, benevolent, interactions. The more malevolent and negative ones, absolutely. Anytime that negative agenda-based extraterrestrials have made contact with our leadership, it's often in trade of, this is going to be a little, this is a little dramatic, but in trade of not only technology, but also in the trade of humans, the trade of physical beings. And some of these more malevolent, agenda-based ETs have made agreements with our leadership in exchange for technology and other things. So this is just one of the ways that contact has happened, behind the scenes from within our leadership. There are so many other forms of contact. Let's talk about the way contact is happening right now. Well, we have channeling. I am an extraterrestrial channeler myself, where I go into an altered brainwave frequency through basically a form of like self-hypnosis, almost altering the brainwaves to open myself up like a sender and a receiver of data to communicate to higher dimensional, lighter density beings that are not as separated to themselves in the universe as we are. There is positive direct communication, open communication happening from real extraterrestrial species through our internet now. Okay? I'm not going to talk about all the ways that they access our internet. There are a couple different ways they do it. But there are people communicating directly with ETs through email. And there are literal physical extraterrestrials using our social media now. I know it's hard to believe. I know it seems crazy. And a lot of you will be like, well, where's the proof? The proof is there, if you know where to look. So we have channeling. We have interactions. Some people believe that, President Trump is working with Pleiadians to help, free Earth from enslavement. Right. That's another big thing we can talk about, theorize. So there's still political and military interactions happening, for better or worse. There is social media now and the internet happening, which is actually a form of direct open contact. And then a little bit more of the indirect type of contact is it does happen quite often in the dream state. Now, when you go to sleep and you have a dream, you're not actually going to sleep and making up, an imaginary circumstance or scenario in your mind. What's happening is your consciousness is always awake. You as a soul, as a being, as an entity, you're always awake. You don't actually sleep. What happens is when you go to bed at night, your consciousness is shifting from your 3D waking life, your 3D Earth dream in the Matrix, and it wakes up in a higher dimension. The dream realm is an alternate dimension. It's an alternate reality, just like taking an analog radio and you turn it from AM to FM or change the station. Realities and densities work just like that. They're all right here around us and within us. They overlap and intersect through frequency. Okay? Many extraterrestrial beings exist in lighter frequencies, lower frequencies, lighter densities, higher dimensions. And it's all a matter of tuning into those frequencies. There are physical ones just like us. There are ones that are so light in density that they're outside of our total spectrum. They to us would hardly seem physical at all. Okay? When you go to sleep, you have a dream. You are communicating more often than not, with extraterrestrials in the dream state, because from their perspective, they're existing in a more lucid state that's closer to what you would term as the dream realm full time. If you're familiar with like the Essassani, the hybrids, Bashar, and some others like them that exist in that density, their entire reality is like a dream. So when we go to sleep at night, we're waking up into a higher dimension that's more representative of where they exist innately full time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can reach us there and communicate with us through symbolism, through metaphor. If you study dream speak, the language of dreams is often through symbolism and metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
And they can have interactions with us and teach us things. We can teach them things.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, humans teach extraterrestrials a lot. So that's another form of contact that's happening right now. If you are familiar with a lot of the abduction stories where men and women wake up and they're being operated on or interacted with ETs, so like the little green men, the
Mm-hmm.
Zetas. There often see mantis beings there as well. The mantis are what's called as the overseers
Mm-hmm.
of an agenda called the hybridization program. And the hybridization program is something that the human collective agreed to in non-physical higher dimensions to experience in the physical form, where human genetics and DNA are sampled to create a new species. It's called the hybridization program, where some humans agreed to, like I said, in other dimensions, to be part of this to help create a new species of hybrids. So the hybridization program, is a very brief description, was where a race of future versions of humans were dying out. They were no longer able to reproduce. And so they came back in time to ask the humans for help in creating a new hybridized subspecies of multiple different races, not just humans. Okay, so don't feel like you're being attacked. Don't feel like you signed up for something that you don't want to do. Don't feel like you're being abused in these situations. In some way, shape, or form, from a higher dimensional perspective, you agreed to be part of this hybridization program, which is meant to save a future version of humans.
Mm-hmm.
And they also sampled other different genetic blueprint species. We're talking like canine and insect and avian and feline. And so if you can imagine your DNA and genetics being hybridized with those other blueprint of species to make hybrids of all of these, it's actually a pretty amazing thing. And what this does is it saves an entire civilization from dying out, because they now have a new, what is the word?
Like pool of genetics.
Pool of genetics to incarnate into, to have as a vessel that can support their energy. So ultimately, it's a very loving thing. But from the perspective of a separated 3D human who doesn't remember about the agreements, having those sort of abduction experiences can be very traumatic and scary. So I
Right.
wanted to touch on that as well, because a lot of people are like, well, when I was a kid, I was abducted and I woke up with all of these aliens around me and it was scary. That happens. There's a lot of reasons that may happen. And there are some more agenda-based, negative races that have their own reasonings for doing things like that. But more often than not, the hybridization program, which from what I understand isn't actually happening in a physical way anymore, that most of that is resolved. That's an explanation for some of those abductions, which were more prevalent in the the 1900s. So anyhow, moving on to the forms of contact that we have now. Okay, just to recap, we've got the internet. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
We have channeling. We have ETs interacting with our leadership and politics and military. And then we have interactions in the dream state. So what would the future of contact look like? Well, we've seen this depicted a million times in movies and TV shows, right? More often than not, it's negative. We're being fucking invaded and blown up. Not the truth. It happens, okay? It happens in realities for whatever reasons, but 9 times out of 10, if a negative, malevolent, fear-based, free will infringing race wants to terraform a planet, it's happening the way that it happened to us.
Right.
Silently. Through the mind,
Yeah.
not through blowing us up and
Physical warfare.
yeah, that's
Psychological, emotional, the usual.
right. Okay. So we don't have to worry about little green men coming from space and blowing us up or probing us. Okay. Like, grow up.
Grow up.
So there's a lot we can talk about the future and contact. But since we're on the right before we get into what contact could look like in the future, because it's all very speculative and
Yeah.
probabilities are changing constantly. And some of our star family have told us what it may or may not look like when it happens, how it happens, by who, what races make first contact.
Right.
I want to get into a little bit of that. Let me just delve real quick into the forms of contact that I have personally had that are more tangible to those who don't really resonate with the channeling concept or the fact that they dream state isn't tangible enough for them to really assume as,
Part of that reality.
Yeah.
First, though, should we establish like what contact is? Is it, what is the definition of extraterrestrial contact? Is it a physical meeting? Is it, channeling an energy? Is it like, how would you specifically define?
Loosening our definitions of what contact is what's going to help accelerate it on all fronts.
Right.
Okay. I accept that contact happens in dreams.
Oh, absolutely.
As a meeting place. And it's relevant. It's a useful tool right now based on the level of consciousness and vibration of the human species and Gaia.
So basically any form of contact is contact. It doesn't have to be necessarily physical. What I'm asking is, for the listeners, if they don't have a physical interaction with a being, can they still claim it to be contact for themselves?
Yes. Now, I appreciate you asking that. Let me offer you a new perspective. Okay, because when I talk about my contact, it's a little bit more extreme. But let me show you how relevant contact could mean for anybody listening right now. People who don't even believe in aliens. Okay? Let me tell you how real contact is. Strip it back. Throw away little green men arriving in saucers. Okay? Contact happens right now. In our dimension, in our reality, in our density. With the species and the animals that we have right now in our reality, in our planet. Okay? It's said that most cetaceans, such as whales and dolphins, are extraterrestrial. Like most of our animal species are actually seeded by other star races on our planet. So when we interact with animals, you need to understand that a lot of the animals that we have exist on other planets right now, in other versions of reality.
Other dimensions.
And other dimensions that we all actually share a lot of genetics and DNA all over. Stardust. So if we have cats here, they have cats on other planets, and they sometimes have different other species of them. They might be bigger or smaller in different shapes and colors, but they all share DNA. Okay? So let's say some of the highest vibratory animals that we have, or mammals that we have on our planet, would be the cetaceans, whales and dolphins. They're highly psychic. They're very old. They're very ancient. A lot of these cetaceans go all the way back to Atlantis and Lemuria, whereas a lot of our newer, surface species were seeded later. The cetaceans are the oldest and the wisest in terms of consciousness. So if you have ever seen a dolphin in person, face to face, and been in the presence of them, or a whale, you feel this overwhelming sense of like awe.
Yeah.
That you are in the presence of something that is almost magical. Even horses give off that frequency, that very high vibrational frequency, that you are in the presence of something that just gets it.
Yeah.
And so I would say that contact happens right now on our planet with our own animals. When you go to the zoo, or you go to Africa or Australia and you see an animal that you've never encountered in your own reality, but maybe you saw on TV or in a movie or on a show, but you've never physically been in the presence of its energy, you feel something. You feel inspired. You feel adventurous. You feel childlike. Because you're in the presence of this being that to you only existed in the movies or on TV, on National Geographic.
As a concept.
As a
that
concept.
You would never, you never pictured yourself actually being in the presence of.
But it's real.
But it is
real. It exists. And then when you see them in person, it's kind of a little magical.
Mm-hmm.
It is for me when I'm around certain animals that are just larger than life.
Yeah.
You just look at them and you're just like, wow, that's amazing. These are all forms of contact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that the loving ETs will say through channeling or through messages or whatever way they can reach us, because they're all often trying to reach us in ways that are non-invasive and non-threatening. That's the big thing, is any positive, benevolent, loving races will always approach you in a loving, non-threatening way.
Mm-hmm.
And they will never ask you to do anything. They will never ask anything of you.
Right.
Okay, that's a big thing. That's a big thing to take notice of. But I lost my train of thought. But we are the loving alien, the loving extraterrestrials will say that if you desire to have contact with them, open contact, and meet them in a physical way or a more conscious way, we need to start having more contact with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Loving the planet,
Mm-hmm.
loving our animals,
Mm-hmm.
our animal kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
loving each other, getting to know each other better. You know, why don't you travel to another country
Yeah.
and stay a little while in a foreign to you culture that is so radically out of your normal reality that you feel like you're on another planet?
Mm-hmm.
Do that and see what it'll mean to you and how it will change you and affect you.
Yeah.
I would highly encourage you to travel to other cultures, because it is like being on another planet.
Mm-hmm.
I live in the States, and sometimes just going to another state,
Is a whole other world.
it's pretty radical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You're having contact.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me give you guys, a brief description of some of the forms of contact that I've personally had outside of channeling or the dream state, if those aren't concrete enough for you.
Mm-hmm.
I have been seeing craft, ships, my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
since I was a kid. Washington State was just sighting after sighting after sighting. I lived there for like 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen multiple giant, like fiery ball shaped crafts with people and friends with me to see these things. I've seen saucers and disc shapes. I've seen the black triangle crafts. I've seen perfect spherical silver crafts.
Mm-hmm.
And multiple different times throughout my life,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen these ships.
Weren't you abducted once too?
I was actually consciously abducted once with a friend of mine who I won't name, but she was a girlfriend of mine that I worked with in Amherst, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And her and I were walking along a pond near our work one night when we saw a ship. We both acknowledged it.
Mm-hmm.
We both got a little uncomfortable because it seemed like it was awkwardly close and watching us, and it was dark out. And so as her and I were making our way around the pond to go back to work for the last 2 hours of the night, we were absolutely taken.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we have time to go into that whole story, but she's not somebody who's very conscious of these concepts.
Mm-hmm.
So for her to go through that experience and acknowledge it
Mm-hmm.
and discuss it with me was pretty profound for her, but very also, crystallizes that as a real thing that happened, because her and I were both very conscious and aware of having been taken and brought back to the exact same point that we were taken from that night. So that was a conscious, I don't like to call it abduction because it's kind of like a fear-based word, but we were taken.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe it was part of the hybridization program. This was a few years ago when that was still happening. And so her and I were both involved in that program as well. So in addition to seeing crafts, I have been physically taken once. I was not hurt or harmed in any way, just so you know. And then in addition to the channeling and the dream state, I have had physical, in-person, open contact, which, is the most concrete form that we have, with the SASQUATCH. Okay? And I've channeled them before, and they came to me, and they said their name was the Kondune. So I was once traveling home from a concert with my ex-wife, And we, as cliche as it sounds, we had broken down on the way home from a concert going through the hills overnight, 3 in the morning. Our car broke down. Alternator died, so the battery died. We're in the middle of nowhere going through the mountains. Well, her and I had broken down, and there was a rest stop a mile back. So we decided that maybe we should just walk to the rest stop in the dark and ask for help, because otherwise we were 3.5 hours from where I lived. I didn't have any friends or family to call to come help us that night. And when we got out of the vehicle, we had encountered a real physical Sasquatch, Bigfoot, standing in the median of where, if you're going down a thruway or a highway or freeway, you've got both sides going either direction. There's often a median where you can turn your car around, like a gravel median, and then go the other way. It was standing in the median right in front of us. And it was so perfect that it seemed perfectly synchronized. I mean, how fucking horror movie cliche is it that your car breaks down in the woods
At nighttime.
with
And you run into
no
it.
help, and you meet an alien?
Yeah.
For those unaware, the Sasquatch are technically extraterrestrial. I mean, they're terrestrial in the sense where they live on our planet, but their genetic hybridization ultimately comes from other areas. So other planets and things like that. So that's a form of ET contact, where we had my ex-wife and I ran into a physical Sasquatch, and it was pitch black other than the moonlight, so you could just see the giant shape in front of us, and then hear it breathing. And then when we got close to it, we realized that we were going to almost run right into it. We're a couple feet away. It spooked, and it ran. It took off across the highway, the direction we were going, and into the woods along the side of the car. And as it ran, you could just see this hulking shape in the darkness, and he breathing. His breath was so deep and loud, and him running this big heavy footsteps, like do. It was amazing. And then we spooked and we ran back to the car and we talked about what had just happened. I mean, when you're trying to cognize the fact that you met a real Sasquatch, it's a lot. So we ultimately, to make a long story short, we ultimately got out of the car and decided to make a break for the rest stop, because we weren't going to sit in the car in the dark all night until sunlight with a Bigfoot walking around. At the time, I wasn't as conscious as I am now, so the experience was a little bit more frightening to me. And when we were walking down the thruway in the dark, we were on the side of the road that it was on, and it was trailing with us in the woods. And when we were getting closer and closer to the rest stop, it stopped and it let out that very iconic Sasquatch howl. That's that howl that you hear on like the TV shows or the sound bites you can find on YouTube. It did that in person. And I tell you, when you hear that in real life, it's a different type of reality experience when something that you only know to be true through stories or television happens to you in real life. Your cognitive dissonance is really challenged. Okay, when you hear that thing, I mean, he must have been 100 yards from us or 100 feet. He howls. It cuts right through your whole body. I mean, every bone in my body felt that, because you know right away that it cannot be anything other than what it is. It was amazing, and that spooked us real good. And we got on down to the rest stop and flash forward to Mount Shasta, August 2019. Lauren and I were hired as videographers to go shoot in Mount Shasta, the Spirit Ambassador Retreat. And myself, along with several other guests who were part of the retreat, we were having multiple Sasquatch interactions and encounters over the course of about 5 days. We were there for 10 days, and 5 of it, we had contact. Okay. I'm not going to go into the big speech right now. I have an episode of Celestial Oddities where we talk about this. And there's also a video on our YouTube channel right now where I talk about this experience in more detail. And in some of the audio that I captured, you're going to be able to hear that in this YouTube video. So if you're hearing this right now, there's a YouTube video about the experience. Go watch it. Check it out. Tell me what you think. But for those listening right now, we had we were this gentleman and I, Alexi, who was one of the guests, we were going out at night and doing contact protocols with the Sasquatch, because one night they came to our house. Lauren was there, and they made their presence known.
Yeah.
We had a house a little bit tucked away off the road in the woods, and they were banging on the house, and they were hollering around and throwing stuff, and it was amazing. Okay, they were just like they were making their presence known, and it was after that we as a group were talking about it and sharing the stories that Alexi and I got a little bold and tried to go out there at night and see if we could meet the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, because I'd already had an encounter up until that point. And Alexi and I were able to make contact. We were able to get knocking sounds. They were banging on stuff in the woods, slamming on stuff. We were getting knocks back. They would knock in intervals of 3 to communicate with us. We could hear them walking around us until the second to the last night. Oh, also, I was feeding them. I was feeding them. I was leaving food out for them outside the house at night, and I have audio recordings of them coming to eat the food. You can see like certain things they don't like. They don't like chocolate, believe it or not. They didn't want the chocolate we left. They didn't want bread, but they like fruit and they like potato chips. For those listening, that's what the Bigfoot like.
Or at least these ones.
These ones.
Yeah.
So, Lauren,
Yeah.
why don't you tell our listeners briefly your Sasquatch extraterrestrial contact that happened the second to the last night of our time at Mount Shasta when we were driving home from game night in a van full of people. We were going down the road and we were just about to turn into our driveway. You tell our listeners what you saw that night.
So I'll just give a quick summary because like he said, we do have an episode or a video about this the whole experience. It goes in depth with the audio recordings and all that. So I'll give you a quick synopsis on what happened. We were in a van full of people driving home, and we saw a Sasquatch shapeshift, almost like cloak itself into a bear, a baby black bear, as a sort of defense, I would guess, for being in this reality. Like, they kind of have an ability to cloak, so that they're not, very obvious to us. But we saw it shift from a very, very large Sasquatch brown figure all the way down into a baby black bear whose feet didn't quite change like the rest of him did and kind of remained as Sasquatch feet. Despite that, in the whole van that we were with, we had 4 other men in the car. So Daniel and I were in the front seat, and then we had 4 other men in the car, and they all also watched it cloak itself.
You forgot the one part where as it went from upright and then started going down, it actually turned into like a giant wolf at first. Yeah.
It went from an upright Sasquatch, huge figure, brown, to a brown wolf.
With
brown,
a big
gray
bushy
wolf,
tail.
With a huge bushy
tail, like a long tail. You could see a tail hanging down.
Into a baby black bear that has no tail, totally had shifted in size and color.
Changed
right in
color
front of our
3
eyes.
times.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is its feet.
Its feet never
changed. They were like giant Bigfoot feet.
They were still Sasquatch feet on a baby black bear. Picture that.
Yeah, and then the black bear just stopped and looked at us right in the middle of the road.
Yeah,
like, what's up?
It ran for a little bit, stopped, and just watched us
pull
into our
Get your fucking high
driveway.
beams out of my face. That was the look it gave
It's like,
us.
I came for chips.
You guys have chips and fruit. That's what's up.
That's what I'm here
and
for.
And that happened. We all witnessed, a whole van full of people watch the whole thing because you could see it in the headlights. And then Alexi and I did more contact protocols, and we got knockings, and they were banging on stuff in the woods. And I did put on an audio recorder overnight. You can hear the audio in the other video here on our channel that we could hear them walking around and eating the chips and knocking on things and
marking territory.
We had them peeing. Yeah. We had a Sasquatch. You can hear the Sasquatch peeing multiple times around the property, marking its territory. Pretty amazing. It was an awesome experience, but that's definitive open contact. When you have, if you need the visual aspect, we have that. If you need the audio aspect, we have that. If you need, to hear them walking around the woods and throwing stuff at the house, we have that too. So these are things that are happening, and that's a form of ET contact. Now, for me personally, it was such a magical experience that I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to try to invite more of this type of contact and put myself in the situation where, you know, you can sort of cultivate that environment where contact can happen, because oftentimes if you want a more physical face-to-face interaction with these beings, you have to go to where the meeting place can really happen. Okay. So those are my forms of physical contact. That's some of the contact that we have had and do have now in sort of different forms. So you can kind of look at that from multiple different ways, get a scope of contact. Let's talk a little bit about one more contact scenario that we have that we're passionate about. And then we'll talk a little bit about what contact can look like in the future.
Yeah.
I channeled here on the YouTube channel. You can look up today's guest, look up the fairy Diotandra. She is a fourth density, parallel dimension, parallel reality fairy, the way that we understand them. And she's sweet and bubbly and jovial. And she explains in the episode, if you want to go watch it, she explains how those beings can interact with humans and our version of reality when they come from their version to ours. There's a translation process that happens. And I'll touch on this as well. Sometimes when higher dimensional beings or lighter density beings come into lower vibratory fields, their form can change. Whether it's deliberate or whether it's just a byproduct or a symptom of going into a different frequency, your physical appearance can change. There's a translation process that happens there sometimes in certain situations. Well, the fairy explained that it's a way that they go from their reality to ours. Do you want to pick it up from here? Explain what that looks like and then talk about what happened?
Sure. Yeah. So we, it's actually very interesting if you think about it. The fact that we had channeled the SASQUATCH race, the Condone, and the fairy race. And then when we went to Mount Shasta, we had contact with both of them. It was almost like we were inviting it in, you know, in that sort of way. So that's very fun to think about. But so when we channeled Diotandra, whose friends call her Dodie, she explained that the translation process happens when they come into our reality, and they can appear in the form of, you know, birds or squirrels or, you know, any bit of nature that exists, so that they can just kind of blend in and observe more than anything. Their goal is to blend in, similar with the SASQUATCH who wanted to cloak into a black bear. They just want to blend in order to be here, because otherwise they're hit with, I mean, unexpected consequences of just appearing, which is incredibly unfortunate. And we talk about it in the SASQUATCH episode of today's guest. So fairies can come through as birds or dragonflies. And when we were in Mount Shasta, we had contact with Dodie in several different forms. So one of them was a bumblebee who was just circling us over and over and over and over and getting in our faces. And I was like, is that Dodie? Is she here now? Because you can kind of feel it on them.
You can feel the energy, like you get sensations.
Yeah.
That the insect or the, you know, your animal kingdom nature is not what it seems.
Yeah. And especially at that time, I had been personally looking for sort of areas where I could make contact with fairies, because I've been very interested in pursuing that. And because I was already used to her energy through the channeling, it was kind of easy for us to pick up on the fact that it was her in, you know, a different form.
It was her. It was dragonflies, birds, bumblebees. Like, it was her coming up and making, like, physically interacting with us.
And getting so in our faces with it that we, like, had to take note of it and kind of pick on her. Because she came through as a bumblebee, a bird, and a dragonfly. Yep. So 3 different physical changes.
Yeah.
But all the same energy and all the same
behavior. And actions and interactions.
So that was really fun for me to find, because that was kind of my first physical confirmation of contact that I had experienced. I've had little things here and there, but that was one of the ones that I was really, really excited about.
It was definitive.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to be open. You have to have an open heart.
Yeah.
To trusting that these interactions are going to happen in whatever way are relevant for you. in whatever way is most synchronous, in whatever way is just serving you best. And for those who are passionate about contact, sometimes that doesn't always look exactly like little green men walking out of a spaceship yet. It can happen and will happen in whatever way is relevant and conducive at the time in your life, at the time in this reality is. So moving forward with the concept of open extraterrestrial contact in our reality as we know it. There's no easy way to say this, that there was a time and a place when and if it can be, will be relevant. Okay? There is a lot that the human race has to do as a species and a society to improve that will create a positive and inviting ecosystem for benevolent races that is conducive for them to come to. We have to do our inner work as beings and as species that will achieve a certain vibratory frequency from within our consciousness, both mentally and emotionally and physically in our bodies, and as a race, as a planet, to increase the collective and individual vibration of all of us to get closer to where they innately exist in their own reality, so that we can meet somewhere in the middle and get closer to them and they can get closer to us. Okay? We got to stop the war. We got to improve politics. You know, we have to let go of all of the fear and the judgment. We have to start accepting ourselves totally as a unified race, so that we can, as individuals and a collective, accept other races into our society as well. We have to let go of the programming and the fear from entertainment and from, the elites' agendas and trying to scare us away from ever wanting contact, even if we do believe in aliens. We have to deprogram ourselves. What does it look like? Well, Hermes told us, and many other races who are channeled have explained to us that contact will start small. You're not just going to see the mothership above, the White House, and they're going to say, we are here. They will not intervene. It is the prime directive. Not until we are ready, and they will know when we're ready. I believe it will start small. Remember how I told you that just contact with your own humans in foreign countries is contact? Contact with dolphins, with whales, with animal and plant species, insect species you've never encountered before is a form of contact. Let's expand on that a little bit. We are third density beings ascending into a fourth density. Okay? Getting into higher dimensions. As that happens, which is happening right now, gradually and gingerly, you will start perceiving lighter density, higher frequency energy. And a lot of these beings exist just slightly on that other radio station above us in those frequency bands, like Dodie. She's a fairy. Yeah. Okay? All of the fairies and elves and goblins and trolls from, our entertainment come from the truth. Okay? That's something that I channeled. That's what she said. Your stories, your fiction comes from the truth. As we ascend into these lighter frequencies, you're going to start literally traveling to these realities where those beings exist. Right? And I believe that as we grow in frequency, we're going to start having open contact with the beings that we have right here on Earth and inside Earth and in the ocean systems and in the inner Earth, the tunnel systems that we don't even consciously or publicly know exist. And these things do exist. You want to talk about cryptids, cryptozoology. It's the study of, unidentified, uncertified, scientifically proven species that, all of your Sasquatches and your Loch Ness monsters and your little trolls and stuff that people see and capture video of. If you spend time on YouTube looking up real troll, people see these things. They exist. And these are, the Jersey Devil, the Mothman. These are what we call cryptids. Okay. But they're just terrestrial and non-terrestrial beings that we don't have scientific evidence of. We're going to start having contact with those beings more openly, more consciously in a physical way as we ascend in vibration. These cryptids and many other beings that you have seen in your entertainment, like Lord of the Rings and things like that, they exist. They're real. And we're going to start perceiving those beings right here on our planet in our reality more and more and more as we awaken and expand in our own consciousness. We can talk a little just briefly about the inner Earth civilizations that are intelligent and look similar to humans. We have the Agarthans. We have the Delphi. We have beings from Telos, beings from Lemuria. That still exist in tunnel systems. You know, some say the ancient Mayans that, you know, became pretty much, you know, that ascended into, you know, higher versions of themselves, but are still physical, have taken residence in the inner Earth civilizations and are also interstellar now. But I'm talking about the races that are not interstellar, as in they're planetary based, like we are. Well, we're actually interstellar, but that's a whole nother conversation. We don't have time for that shit. So, to make a long story short, we're going to start having open contact with the beings that exist right under our noses, right under our feet in our oceans. We've talked about that there are mer people. There is the SASQUATCH, which are very loving beings, peaceful beings that are constantly attacked and harassed by humans, which is part and parcel why we're not ready for open contact, because every time we see something like that, we attack it. Same with the mer people. They're attacked. So, you know, why would the aliens want to land when humans are still so brutal to each other and to the races, whatever little, you know, undiscovered species that we find? You know, you find stories of the people in Guatemala find the little troll people and fucking chase them down and pick them up and throw them around and stuff. It's terrible. Why, you know? So we need to get past that shit. But as we ascend in vibration and frequency, we get closer to where those beings innately exist. They're not going to be able to hide from us anymore.
Right.
We're going to be closer together in frequency band so that we just start perceiving stuff that you would only see in Lord of the Rings, in the cartoons and the movies. That's really going to happen. I'm telling you, that exists. That will start happening before, I believe, you know, the star family do. The star family land. I mean, we communicate with the Taiget and Pleiadians quite regularly. There are also some other races, Ontarians, look very human. They look a little bit, they're dark-skinned, don't have as much hair, but they look very humanoid. There's a couple other races that look very human, which we can discuss at another time. But these are all races that are interacting with Earth right now, protecting Earth, overseeing Earth, helping Earth, helping humans, helping humanity in a non-hands-on way to the best of their ability. And I think ultimately, as we accelerate in vibration and frequency and expand our consciousness, we'll start seeing fairies and goblins and trolls. We'll start seeing inner Earth civilizations, which will probably make contact before anything lands from the sky. We'll start having open contact with Sasquatch. I'm telling you right now, I have met Sasquatch. I've met Bigfoot twice, with other people there to corroborate. These are real things that are happening. We're going to start having an open, direct communication with that species. I believe that it will happen with individuals first. So people who are of a vibratory match to contact will start having one-on-one interactions, or in small groups of like vibration people will have Sasquatch. They will meet fairies. They will meet elves. They will meet inner Earth species that look more human like us. And then as that becomes a little bit more commonplace, and there's so much evidence of it that no one can deny the existence of, it cannot be hidden from us through agendas. It cannot be programmed to us that if they exist at all, that they're negative and malevolent, will hurt us. When all that bullshit is gone, the programming is gone, and people are showing you pictures on their cell phones and videos and audio recordings of, non-human intelligent life interactions, or, little beings, little creatures that you only see in the movies. You're catching them in your backyard, stealing your fruit. It's going to become your chips. They like chips.
They like chips.
They like chips.
To
give them chips. What?
Just share. I think that's the biggest thing, is if you become comfortable enough with them to share your chips, they're going to want to come hang out, just like any other friend.
It's a peace offering.
It's a peace offering. Yeah.
Take action.
Very
if you want contact, take action. Act in whatever way is exciting to you.
Yeah.
Whatever way resonates with you. If you're having dreams, tell somebody about your dreams. Okay? If you saw a
Write 'em
spaceship,
down.
write it down. Tell somebody about your spaceship encounter. They happen all the time. They're very real. Those are synchronized, organized sightings of ET contact. If you have an abduction experience, tell somebody, what was it like? If you've ever seen a Bigfoot, or you've ever seen, captured a fairy in pictures, sometimes they show up on digital devices. Share these things. Take action. If you have an interest, allow it to come to you in whatever way is most relevant for you. Might be different than other people's stories and their experiences, but yours is what is unique to you. It's what's important. Spirit knows how to talk to you, and it will do it in whatever way is relevant. So when will the ships land? When we get our act together.
When we're ready for it.
When we wake up.
When we have a vibrational match to open contact.
When we clean up our earth.
When it's ready.
And I do believe that it will happen. I do believe that it will happen in my lifetime.
Absolutely.
And that's the reality that I want to create. Is we do create our own reality. I believe in the fact that we are extraterrestrial down to the cell. And I believe that they are, and they know that, and that makes us family. And so someday, when the time and place is right, when the frequency is just matched, we will have open contact. So trust that any interactions that happen on the internet is the only way that they can do it right now that's safe for us and safe for them. Trust that when you have an ET contact in your dreams, that is your family, those members of your people reaching out to you in whatever way that they can. And if these things excite you, talk to us about it.
Yeah. Let us know.
Share your stories.
Share your stories. If you have any contact stories or differing opinions on how to achieve contact or what it means to you, let us know.
It's all relevant. Nothing is too small. Nothing is too big. And remember what I said, that you're having contact every day with new animals and plants you've never seen, and insects or birds or bugs, whatever it is on your planet right now in your own geography. That's contact. And once you acknowledge it, as menial as it is, as contact, that will accelerate if it excites you. And take action wherever you can, and be open to contact happening to you in whatever way serves you best right now. And that can change later, but just let it be what it is. And I hope that our stories have, shed some light on the concept for you. Will we have open contact with aliens someday? Yes. Will it look like it does in the movies? Probably not.
Because we're not going to be at war.
Because we're not going to be at war. Will contact happen to individuals before it happens as a collective species? Yes, absolutely. And then will it happen someday? Will they land publicly and on the White House lawn and shake our hands? Yes. When the time is right. When the frequency is matched.
Alrighty. Well, I would say that concludes this episode. Thank you again to Steeltown.
Thank you for having us, Steeltown, and thank you for all of our listeners and for those who have been watching. This is episode 6. Yeah, 6 episodes. Thank you for being here with us. I know that there are a couple people who watch every episode, and so we thank you for hanging out with us and just listening to us ramble and share our passion.
It's fun.
That's so meta.
Cheers.